I think we are just like a smaller version of England, really, in them sort of aspects. So a lot of the culture sort of applies to both, really. If you're into like walking and hiking, it's like probably it's up there with anywhere in the world, really. There's so many like scenic nature walks you can go on. And obviously, because we're surrounded by water, there's lovely coastal walks with coastal paths that you can go around. I think one of the famous ones is the Radna Fallen, which is like a coastal walk around the whole of the Isle of Man. And there's people that come all over the world to see that. If you're into sort of like nature and walking and hiking, the Isle of Man's perfect for you. And I think a lot of older people come here to retire and buy a house over here because it's just like a dead nice place to live, really. People will always do what they can for you, whether it be like just giving you a helping hand here, or if your house needs work done, if you know someone, they might know a plumber or an electrician and they can help you out that way. So people will always try to help you as much as they can.
Welcome to another episode of World to the Max. Today I'm with my friend Callum from the unique Isle of Man, he's going to talk about it later, but which is an island that's part of the English region. How are you, Callum?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Nice to obviously see you again. It's obviously been a few years since we've seen each other, so nice to reconnect, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Just a quick story. We've met in the US. We've played in the same team, went to the same school, so it's been about 3 to 4 years. We haven't seen each other.
Yeah, and obviously Maxie's been playing professional now, so I'm surprised he got me on the podcast. He's not gone.
I wish. We're gonna talk about football later, but you still have some football skills going on in the Isle of Man.
You know me, I didn't have much skills. I just used to head it and kick it, Maxie.
It's a bit of the English mentality. We'll talk about this later. All right. So first question, obviously, a lot of people don't know about the place itself. Tell me about where it's located. How big is it? The population, etc.
Yeah, so obviously the Isle of Man's like a little island that's based in the United Kingdom, and it's a little tiny island which is in between England and Ireland. And there's only 82,000 people that actually live on the Isle of Man, so it's obviously dead small. Distance-wise, you can get a car journey from the top to the bottom, and it'll take you about 40 minutes. So it's like really small. So everybody knows everyone. You can get around easily. So it's just a dead small little island in the United Kingdom.
And has it always been the part of, I don't know, England or Ireland? What kind of status does it have right now?
Well, it's its own, it's a crown dependency, so it's its own country. So we have our own government and all that. We're not governed by like England or anything like that. I think if it did come down to
exactly,
and wanted us to do something, we probably would have to do it. But yeah, we're governed by ourselves, so we are our own country.
Right. And so I'm sure it hasn't always been the case. So tell me a bit about the history of the Isle of Man.
Yeah, it's always just been like people from the Isle of Man are known as Manx people. So it's always just been full of Manx people, and obviously people have come from all over the world to live here. Like I'd say it's predominantly like filled with Manx people still, but slowly starting to become people from like different nations and different parts of the world are starting to come over, which I always think is mad, because I always think, how do people from all these like places around the world actually know about the Isle of Man? Because it's not very well documented. I'd say most people probably know about the Isle of Man from something called the TT, which is like a world famous motorbike race that goes on here. And I'd say that's probably the Isle of Man's biggest thing it has going on, where people would know and recognize the Isle of Man from.
I did some research about the Isle of Man. So the first thing that came up was this motorcycle race, which is insane. Talk to me about this actually a little bit.
Well, it's a 2-week sort of period where they have like something called a practice week, where obviously all the riders come over and they like ride the course. But the course is basically situated on all the main roads of the Isle of Man. So when the race is going on, all the roads are closed, and this is like going past people's houses and all. Like at like 200 miles an hour at times on these motorbikes, whizzing past people's houses. So life sort of really stops on the Isle of Man. So you'll have like a 1-week practice where the roads will close from like 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock at night. So everyone's rushing home from work to try and get home before the road's closed. Otherwise, if you're situated on the course, you can be blocked out of your house. And then obviously there's a race week where the racing like continues literally from first thing in the morning until about 5 o'clock at night. And most people have it off work. I've got it off work. So you literally just have a week's holiday where everyone comes and watches the bikes, and there's loads of stuff going on the island, because usually the island's not got that much to do. But when it comes to TT, the weather's usually good. Get about 40,000 people come over to watch the TT. So the population literally goes 1.5 times. So it's so busy. There's loads to do, and it's probably one of the best periods there is on the Isle of Man throughout the year. Everyone's excited for it in the calendar, coming to the TT period. So yeah, it's a really good sort of event for the Isle of Man.
Well, that sounds good. Sounds good. What period is it usually around?
The last week of May and the first week of June. It's around that time.
Okay, okay, okay. And how does that work? Anybody can just, I'm sure it's, you have to be a good racer, but how does that work? How does the selection work?
Yeah, this thing's called qualifying. So obviously people will qualify through. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I think you've got to ride in obviously like little different motorbike races, and then you can qualify to necessarily ride in the TT. There's also a thing called the Manx Grand Prix, which is sort of similar, and I think a lot of the people qualify for the TT through riding in that Manx Grand Prix, and then you obviously can gain newcomer status, and then you sort of go into it that through that sort of way.
Okay, okay, okay. And why the Isle of Man to do this race? What's very unique about the Isle of Man? Is there a lot of mountain, a lot of countryside races?
Well, that's the thing. There's not. That's the only sort of, apart from the Manx Grand Prix and the Southern 100. That's the only sort of big motorbike race there is. And obviously, because it's a dead small island, there is a lot. It's mainly in the countryside, and there's one of the famous roads is the Mountain Road, and that's a big section of the TT where it's basically like a big road through the mountain. And when the TT is not going on, it's actually like an unrestricted speed zone, so you can go as fast along that as you want. So that's like one of the major parts of the Isle of Man.
Yeah, that's incredible actually. So do people actually drive really fast or are they just used to just being free in a way?
Yeah, some people drive silly speeds across the mountain when the racing isn't going on. There is a lot of accidents on there, to be honest, because obviously there's no speed restriction. So you get some people who think they're in the TT trying to whiz their car around it and all.
Are you one of those or not?
I'm sensible, Maxie, you know me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's talk a bit more about people, the culture in the Isle of Man. So I'm sure, obviously, you speak English, but do you speak a different dialect?
We do have our own language, which is called Manx, but it's sort of a dead language. No one really speaks it over here. I think there's one school that like only speaks Manx at it, but day to day life, I don't think I've ever spoke Manx to anyone from the Isle of Man in my life. So it's not sort of a language we use, but it is there if you want to learn it, and some people obviously do so. But yeah, it's not like a commonly used language over here. We mainly speak English.
Okay, okay, okay. Do you think it's a bad thing in a way that we just forget about the language, or people don't really care?
Yeah, it's one of the people don't really care about it, to be honest, because it's not used. There's not like there's not a big emphasis on learning it. When you're in primary school, as we call it over here, which is when you're like ages 4 to 11, sometimes you do lessons on learning it, but then as soon as you go to like high school, they don't teach it anymore. So there's never really a big emphasis on learning it. So like the locals we don't really care about learning the language.
Okay, 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 okay. Obviously, it's a very, as you say, it's a very small island. So how do you stay connected with the rest of the UK, the rest of England or Ireland? Do people actually stay their whole lives, or is there a lot of jobs, or do people actually move away?
It just depends on the individual. Obviously, you're quite restricted with what you can do, and there's limited opportunities over it. So if you're wanting to do something like, say, within sport or like a specific career, sometimes you do have to move away. And I think that's where a lot of young people will tend to move away from the island because it doesn't offer a lot. I think in the job sector, there's a lot of finance jobs over here with sort of like e-gaming and accountancy. But say you wanted to work in like a sports sort of environment, whether that be playing or at a club from like a sports science point of view or like analytics, there's literally virtually nothing over here for you. So you're sort of forced to move away if you want to pursue a career in that sort of stuff. So in terms of that, it is quite limited, but it's easy enough to get over to the mainland, like England, or it's just a boat or a plane ride away, which is relatively easy. So you are still connected to obviously the UK.
Okay, okay. I liked what you said about the finance sector because when I did some research, it also came up that the Isle of Man is a good place for people to kind of escape taxes in a way.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, a lot of that goes on. That's why you get Tyson Fury, the boxer.
Yeah.
He's just bought a house over here, and I think, well, I'm sure he wouldn't come out and say it, but I'm sure that's for tax purposes. So yeah, it's sort of well known that the Isle of Man is sort of in that category.
Well, I guess it brings wealthy people and it makes the place a richer place in a way. But
I wouldn't say it
uh,
does, to be honest, because like they sort of just will have properties over here or have stuff set over here, but I wouldn't say they necessarily come over here. So it's we're sort of just used for like the tax purposes, and then I wouldn't say they actually contribute to the island in any way. Yeah, it's a topic of debate anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But what would be contributing to the island in a way? How can you do that?
Well, I suppose the people that come over, they don't really have any like ties to the island, so it's probably not in their interest to maybe donate to things like schools or charities or like infrastructure because they've not necessarily got any ties. It is a tough one, really. I don't think they've got any prerogative to really want to donate to the Isle of Man, which is I understand that and no one expects them to anyway. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
it's just one of them, isn't it?
Well, it's serious. Okay, so talk to me about the traditions the island has in a way, whether it's food, traditions like the race you talked about. Tell me about the unique place.
Well, there's a couple like sort of things that are very niche to the Isle of Man. Like I wouldn't say it's a tradition. We have things called Manx cats, right? And they're basically just cats with no tail. It sounds mental, but and I couldn't even tell you why that actually is. Obviously, there'll be old folk stories of they got the tails chopped off and all that, but there is actually cats over here that don't have a tail. I couldn't tell you why that is, but that's probably something that's quite niche to the Isle of Man. But in terms of the food, it's just sort of like very similar to England. I think we are just like a smaller version of England, really, in them sort of aspects. So a lot of the culture sort of applies to both, really.
Okay, yeah, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, it's still really connected to the UK in general, of course. How is the relationship though with let's take England? How is the relationship when you're someone that comes from the Isle of Man and you go to England? Are you seen any different from other people?
No, not at all. People wouldn't like from your accent, people wouldn't know you're like from the Isle of Man. A lot of times people think people from the Isle of Man sound like they're from Liverpool. Like that's probably the most common thing that we get is people think you're Scouse if you're speaking, which I don't think we do sound like that, but to other people we probably have like a similar sort of accent in a way. But yeah, we're well received by the English people. But like I said, we're pretty similar, so there's never obviously there's sometimes when you play like football, like for us, for example, we go across and play in the leagues. So we get a bit of banter about being from the Isle of Man and people saying it's a rubbish and it's a dump and all this. But nah, genuinely we're well received from people in England. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, let's imagine you're a tourist and you want to visit this place. What does it have to offer? I've seen some really nice spots actually.
There's for like if you're into like walking and hiking, there's like probably it's up there with anywhere in the world really. There's so many like scenic nature walks you can go on. And obviously because we're surrounded by water, there's lovely coastal walks with coastal paths that you can go around. I think one of the famous ones is over here is the Radna Fallen, which is like a coastal walk around the whole of the Isle of Man. And there's people that come all over the world to see that. I was actually speaking to a lad from France because I used to work in the local supermarket and he come up to me and he was speaking to me. And obviously I clocked he was from France. And he'd only come over it so he could walk the Ragnar. Yeah, if you're into sort of like nature and walking and hiking, the Isle of Man's perfect for you. And I think a lot of older people come here to retire and buy a house over here because it's just like a dead nice place to live, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a fair point. I even think when I see pictures or videos, it makes me think about like those big movies like The Lord of the Rings or
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know if any of those movies were recorded in?
No, I think they were. Think I remember. I don't know if it was the Isle of Man. I think some of it was recorded in the UK, though. I think
Yeah,
just because of the landscape. But yeah, I know what you mean. It is quite similar.
yeah, exactly,
All the
exactly.
greenery in the
So
hills.
exactly, you talked about the difference between visiting and living. So talk to me about the local experience. What is it like for you?
I mean, it's good. Like from a work standpoint, like I travel 10 minutes in my car to work, and then I'm there. Like I don't have to commute. Like some people, if you live in a big city or a big place, you're getting up at silly o'clock in the morning to get a train that lasts an hour to work, and you have to get up 3 hours before you actually start work. Whereas over here, you're only a 20, 30 minute car drive from your work. So there's none of that commuting, none of that waiting in lines, waiting in queues, like getting up dead early, getting home dead late because commuting to work. So for that aspect, it's really good. Obviously everything's on your doorstep. You're close to everything, so you don't have to travel long distances to do things. So yeah, in that aspect, the Isle of Man's really good. But in terms of like stuff to do, it's quite limited. Like if you're not into the way I see it, if you don't play sport and you're not active and you don't like getting out and walking and seeing nature, the Isle of Man is quite restricted and doesn't have a lot to offer.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, I mean, I think it's the same with every very small island. It's always difficult to leave to find activities, but it has positives and negatives. Of course, I'm sure you know a lot of people. Everybody's connected to each other in a way, so that's the good part of it. Talk to me about the weather because it's such a small island. You're surrounded by the sea. So talk to me about that.
It depends. In the winter, the weather is horrible. Like it rains every day. It's because we're surrounded by the beach. It's so windy. So it's like windy, rainy, miserable all winter. So it's like I would say the Isle of Man is probably one of the worst places to live in the winter. But then when it comes to the summer, when the weather's good, I think it's an unbelievable place to live. Just with the views, obviously, like we discussed before, the coast, which is during the winter, it's unbelievable. But yeah, in the winter, the weather is rubbish. It just rains every day.
Well, I guess it's the location. You have too much influence from the England and the UK in general.
Yeah.
Interesting, actually. It's because of that, do you see some people moving during the winter and then going back during the summer, like doing a half and half season?
I think like older people do that if they're retired. A lot of people will buy like a holiday home in places like Spain or whatever, and they'll spend the winter months out there where it's a bit nicer and then obviously come back for the summer. So yeah, it's definitely a thing that happens for like older people or people with a bit more money.
Yeah. How easy is that for just foreigners to move to the Isle of Man if they want to?
I think I don't think it's that difficult to move to the Isle of Man. I think as long as you go like every country you go about through the processes. Yeah, you don't have to get a visa or anything like that. It's not like obviously America and Australia where it's quite difficult to get in. I think as long as you go about things in the right way and you move to a country and pay into the tax system and all that, there's never a problem with people moving to the Isle of Man. I would say though the locals are it's like anywhere in the world. When you're used to people only from that place, you can be quite narrow-minded. And like, there's some people from the Isle of Man that have spent their whole life here. So I think from a cultural aspect, they're just set in their ways of thinking because they haven't gone and experienced different cultures, met different people. You've probably seen it when we were in Livingston. You could tell people that had lived there all their life when they see people from Europe or from people from different places of the world come over. They don't really take to you as well, do they?
Yeah. How easy is it for you to travel? Do you have a UK passport or do you have an English passport or is it like an Isle of Man passport?
It's like it's an Isle of Man passport. It's classed as a British passport, so it's pretty much the same as having an English passport or whatever like that. So it's pretty easy yeah, it's really easy to travel, to be honest.
Okay, okay, okay. And is it part of the European Union or it's like because I know Northern Ireland isn't or something like this.
No, we're not. We left it a couple of years ago. The UK obviously left the European Union, so yeah, we're not a part of that anymore.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, obviously we've met through football, so we're also gonna talk about that. So talk to me about the football experience in the Isle of Man.
It's quite limited, really. Obviously, there's only like Sunday league grassroots sort of level you can play at up until, well, for everyone really, until there was a club set up in literally just before I moved to America in around 2020. They set up a club that now plays in the English league system. So they went in at step 10, it's called, like the 10th tier of English football. So now that's the highest level you can play at, obviously on the Isle of Man now, which is obviously the club I play for now. Currently playing the ninth division of English football. So yeah, that's all there really is on the Isle of Man from like a footballing standpoint.
Uh, do you think a lot of players move to England to have a better exposure?
Yeah, there's lots of lads who will obviously, if you're good enough, you'll hopefully get scouted by an academy and play for an academy in England. There's a couple of lads that have done that from over here. Some lads will go to like a football college in England, or some lads will obviously go off to America and try pursue it that way. So there's like multiple options you can take. But from a staying on Ireland standpoint, you hit your glass ceiling pretty quickly if you're any good at football.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's obviously the financial aspect. If you don't leave off it, you're more like, well, you're more likely to move if you want to make it a living.
Yeah.
In the highest league in the Isle of Man, do you get to travel to the UK or to England?
No, they just play locally, like the highest level on the Isle of Man. And then obviously that's why that club was set up to hopefully give Manx born players an opportunity to test themselves and play in the English league and sort of play at the highest level possible.
Okay, okay, okay. And I'm gonna talk also about the place of football in society. So it's a very small island, but if you have to look at the proportion of people following football, is that as big as England?
Yeah, I'd say predominantly a lot of lads will follow football. They follow football teams from England, all the big teams like Liverpool, United, all them sort of teams. So yeah, football is obviously a massive part of society over here, like it is, I think, anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So what comes usually in the UK in general, what comes with football is usually partying and pubs and everything. Is that a thing? Is that a thing as well there?
Yeah, of course it is. I think of teams that you're going to follow your team. A lot of lads will go watch the game, go to the pub before, go to the pub after. Like there's a big drinking culture around football, really, if you're supporting teams. And even in like non-league, the level I play at. Obviously, when you're in America, everything's done dead spot on, or if you're in an academy, drinking's not a big aspect. Whereas when you play non-league, it's probably similar in France when you play in the lower leagues. People play football because they like it, but then they'll go enjoy themselves after as well. So
Yeah, 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 definitely. I mean, it is similar in France, definitely, but in England, it's just on another level, definitely.
yeah,
Talking about, well, the perception of Isle of Man in like in terms of national football, do they mostly follow England, Ireland? I don't know.
England predominantly they follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any type of relationship with Ireland because it's so close to it, or not really?
Not really, to be honest. Obviously, you'll get Irish people over here who obviously migrate because it's dead close. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's like a dead close relationship with Ireland or anything like that. No.
Okay. So I'm guessing the Isle of Man is waiting for England to win the World Cup this summer.
Yeah, 100%. We're actually we're going out to America in the summer while the World Cup's going on. So hopefully England lift it.
Amazing, amazing. You're going.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Where?
We're going to Nashville.
Wow, that's interesting selection.
Sticking to the country roots.
Well, we haven't talked so much about the mentalities, the mindset of people in the Isle of Man. So talk to me about that.
It's quite a tricky one to answer, really. But in general, the people from the Isle of Man are quite negative. And if you're someone who like wants to better yourself or wants to do things that are like out of the ordinary or think outside the box, I think it may be like a British mentality in a way, but it's certainly specific to the Isle of Man. Like people just want to drag you down to be on their level because they don't like seeing people like elevate themselves. Like the best example I can give is from the football club that was set up. That if you think a football club that plays in England was set up, you think everyone from that country would be supporting them and wanting them to do well. But it's the total opposite. Everyone wants like us to fail. And like see if we lose on the weekend and you go on obviously the Facebook or the Twitter, there's people that are just waiting to like throw negative comments at it. It even stems from like there's a local club over here that they've all the players that have played for it, that some of them are good enough to play for us, have made like a little thing where they're not allowed to go and leave their club and play for us because it's seen as like a bad thing. Which, like, if you're someone who wants to better yourself and someone who like obviously looks at other people and wants them to do well, it's just a mental concept to get your head around. Like, why would you not want something for the Isle of Man to do well? But it's called like a Manx crab syndrome where people want to drag people down into their level and remain in their little bucket.
Interesting, interesting. So I like what you said about like British mentality. Do you think it's even more in the Isle of Man than in the?
Yeah, it's probably the worst in the Isle, man. No, anyone do well.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think, yeah, you probably describe what that's the idea I have of England sometimes as well. But because, for example, when you take football teams, their local are so they can't accept even one loss. Sometimes I don't know if you take the example of Liverpool or, well, Manchester United is another topic. But if you take strong teams that have been succeeding for a while, and then you see how fans are treating them, sometimes it's a bit crazy.
And everyone's head falls off, and everyone like it's like anything. Everyone thinks they know better than the people that it's their profession and it's their job.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know. So do you think it's the same in society in general? It's not only a football thing. It's in the society, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's like a societal thing, and that just breeds out into different branches, like football, for example.
So how does that affect like relationships? Do you think people are colder with each other?
I wouldn't say it necessarily like affects relationships, sort of thing. It's just like if you're someone who wants to push the boundaries and sort of see how far you can go and how good you can be, that's when sort of people will feel the need to throw their 2 pence in. But it's like anything. It's usually people that you don't come into contact with or you don't personally know. They're the ones doing it, not sort of the people around you. So it's like anything, isn't it? Like, if you're not, I always think if you're a normal person and you're like, it doesn't bother you, does it?
Yeah,
Sort of like it says more about them than it does about you. But that's just part of life, isn't it?
very true, very true. It must have been a very different culture in the US. US is it's more like relaxed, I guess very accepting of other people.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, all the people you meet are sort of wanting to better themselves as well. So you're sort of surrounded by people who all have like a similar sort of mindset and similar aspirations to yourself. So I'd say it's a lot more of a like positive atmosphere, really, isn't it?
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So you've talked about the negative aspects of people. Talk to me about the positives that you can see.
People like because it's such a small knit community, and if you know a lot of people, it's people will always do what they can for you, whether it be like just giving you a helping hand here or put like if your house needs work done, if you know someone they might know a plumber or an electrician and they can help you out that way. Or so people will always try help you as much as they can. And that's something I've noticed. That's the difference I'd say from here to America. People will always try and help you. Because I don't know if you found this experience in the States, but when you don't have a car in America, you're so restricted on where you can go. And I don't know if it was a cultural thing, but the American lads, if you wanted them to take you to the supermarket, it was like you were asking them to drive 10 hours down the road for you. Like they weren't keen on doing it if they didn't get anything out of it. Whereas over here, like if no lads drive, you'll happily go and pick them up and drop them where they need to be, and there'll be no, you won't expect anything in return from them. So you'll be happy to do whatever you can for people. So I'd say that's the positive about being from the sort of UK and the Isle, man. People will always try and help you where they can.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's usually what a small community does,
Yeah,
brings everybody together. I mean, to be fair, in the US, you weren't living in a very big community, so it should have been the same. But
exactly. But it was the polar opposite.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess Americans are very lazy. I'm not trying to make a stereotype, but they're lazier. They don't want to move. It's like going out is as demanding a lot from someone.
To be fair, I think that's a pretty decent account, like in a small sort of segment of the Isle, man.
Oh, thank you very much. So, for people that don't know, the Isle of Man is it's a very small island, of course, and you've covered most of the things about the island. I've learned a lot about the island, to be fair. So, thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Maxi.
Yeah, yeah, it's always good to see a good old friend. And for people that want to see other videos, other episodes, I'll put my podcast channel on YouTube, social media, etc. So yeah, stay tuned for another episode, and connected to this episode, there will be another video with another friend that we both know, and it will talk more about England, obviously.